This is the 110th day in the Hamas-Israel war, and the IDF has completed the isolation maneuver in the Hamas stronghold city of Khan Younis. Now the forces remain there to suffocate the terrorist cells of Hamas inside. I'm Yair Pinto, reporting to you from Israel. I want to start by thanking everyone who has been praying for my health and safety. Thank you so much. You know that this is not my normal life. In my normal life, I work in media, I do TV productions, so being a soldier again is a completely new life. And it's not easy being out in the cold, in the Gaza Strip, and under normal circumstances, I like to stay warm with my family, with my kids. But together with the rest of the soldiers, and especially the reserve units of the IDF, we know why we are fighting, and we know why we leave our families back in the house and go to fight this war. We do this in order to defend our families, our children, and our country. So, once again, I want to thank everyone who has been praying for me and my fellow soldiers in the IDF during these dangerous, difficult, and uncomfortable conditions. Please don't stop praying and sharing videos like this one with other people who care about Israel, so that the prayers will have a strategic effect for the future of Israel. Now let's jump right into today's report. It has been a very sad week for Israel, following reports of large numbers of casualties from the fighting in Gaza. As you probably know, 21 young Israeli heroes were killed in action on Monday. This was the largest number of soldiers killed in a single day for the IDF in the current war, and also one of the deadliest days of any of Israel's wars, going back to the Independence War in 1948. Out of the ashes of this tragedy, we can grasp onto hope, and we look at this mosaic of the faces of these young Israelis. This comes from the human and multicultural mosaic of Israel, fighting and dying together to defend our country and give our people a better future. As we took these faces, we see what the army of the only democratic country in the region looks like. So even amid all the sadness, I cling to this hope. Once again, please share these videos on social media and send them to your local media outlets and elected officials, so we can get the truth out to the world about what's going on here in Israel and who we are fighting. Another person who is trying to get the truth out is IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi. He led the start of an investigation into Monday's incident and spoke about the initial findings with reporters on Tuesday.
מיטב בניה של הארץ הזאת, אשר התנדבו להגן על הבית ושילמו את המחיר היקר ביותר. אנחנו משתתפים בצער משפחותיהם על האובדן הכבד, ויודעים כי הכאב גדול מנשוא. הם מגיעים מכל חלקיה של החברה הישראלית ומרחבי מדינת ישראל. הם קבוצת מופת ודוגמה עבור כולנו. אין לנו יקרים מהם. נרכין ראש, אך נזקוף קומה לקראת המשך הלחימה וההגנה על הבית. אנחנו עדיין נלחמים. אנחנו מחסלים ופוגעים במחבלים רבים, במפקדים רבים. מרצחי חמאס, מולם נמשיך לפעול בנחישות רבה. ביום הזה אנחנו חשים את מחירה הגדול והכואב של מלחמה. אך זו שאנחנו נלחמים כעת היא הכרחית וצודקת מאין כמוה. נמשיך להילחם למען זכותנו הברורה לחיות כאן בביטחון.
Well said, Herzi Halevi. I want to add, on a personal note, that I think you're doing a great job leading the IDF in this war, and I'm honored to serve under your command. That's the ultimate objective that we're fighting for in Gaza, on Israel's northern border, and all the other fronts in this war, that our people would be able to live quiet and peacefully. While you're praying, think about what the IDF soldiers are facing. To help you, I can describe one battle fought this week by the 7th Brigade Combat Team and the Yalam Combat Engineering Unit. They discovered a central terrorist base in Khan Younis, including a 1.5 kilometer long tunnel at the end of the rocket manufacturing factory. Hamas built this base around and underneath a residential neighborhood that included 2 schools. They do this to use children as human shields, knowing that Israel will not strike a Hamas military target if the strike will also hit innocent civilians. And if they do, they can use the deaths of these civilians as propaganda against Israel. This is a very old trick that has been used by authoritarian regimes in their battle against free, democratic societies for generations, and the world really ought to know how to better deal with these situations. But there are always naive people who don't know about this trick, or who don't understand the nature of these authoritarian regimes, who will be willing to march in the streets with signs and chants denouncing democracies for defending themselves against evil. Speaking of which, the battles fought by the IDF in Khan Younis have been very fierce, with heavy exchanges of fire between the terrorists and the IDF forces. The terrorists also blew up the entrances to their tunnels to try and deny the IDF access to them, but this only delayed the engineers, who eventually made their way into the tunnels, discovering and destroying large quantities of weapons and ammunition. Equipment and materials for the production of rockets meant to be fired into Israel were also discovered and destroyed during the operation. These instruments of death and destruction will not be used against the people and the army of Israel in the future. While all of this is going down in Gaza, there are 2 other fronts where the IDF soldiers are hard at work defending their country. One front is the northern border, is where the IDF is facing off against the Iranian-backed Hezbollah terrorist organization, which is much larger and more powerful than Hamas. Since October 7, Hezbollah has fired hundreds of rockets, drones, anti-tank missiles, and mortars into Israeli territories. The IDF has responded with airstrikes and artillery, neutralizing approximately 150 Hezbollah terrorists, together with a handful of Hamas terrorists who are operating inside Lebanon, and even Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps commandos who are there assisting Hezbollah. Several IDF soldiers and a few Israeli civilians have been killed in these exchanges of fire, and the situation has the potential to escalate rapidly. Last but not least, the IDF, Shin and border police are carrying out regular operations in Judea and Samaria, as well as the eastern neighborhoods of our capital city, Jerusalem. These operations are meant to confront the threat of terrorism and criminal activity in these areas and include arresting no terrorist operatives and supporters. Thousands of such individuals have been arrested in the past few months, and several have been killed by Israeli security forces while violently resisting attempts to arrest them. The Palestinian Authority police have been somewhat helpful in its efforts to prevent an erupt of violence in Judea and Samaria, but the scope of the problem is beyond their capacity to respond, and they have even lost operational control of some areas. This includes the city of Jenin in northern Samaria, where criminal gangs, including the notorious Lion's Den group, have essentially taken control of the streets away from the Palestinian Authority administration, requiring the IDF to deploy inside the city in order to restore order. This is a very tough situation, and people, and especially civilians on both sides, are affected and hurt. You might have heard that the United States and the European Union want the Palestinian Authority to take over administrative control of the Gaza Strip after Hamas has been eliminated there. I don't know what the future will be for the Gaza Strip, but all I know is that we need to keep praying that God will be the one to find a solution for the problems of this region. He is the only one that can bring peace to Israel, to the Gaza Strip, to Lebanon, to Iran, and to the rest of the world. So please join us by keep praying for the peace of Israel and the peace of Jerusalem.